Hey Algebra 1, this is Mr. Osborne. I am doing a Edpuzzle review for your final review for semester 2. Have any questions, you can always call on me, Mr. McMahon, Mr. Connors, Miss Menard, Miss Rifkin. We're all here to help you guys. Alright, so I'm going to be going through the review. This is going to be broken up into 4 different videos since there's 4 different pages. So this is the first page. Alright, so first starting with number 1. We need to solve the inequality and graph its solution. Well, before you graph this or figure out which one's which, you need to isolate the variable, get the variable by itself. In order to get this variable by itself, n, you're going to have to multiply the 4. Because we're dividing 4, so we do the opposite of that. We multiply 4. So we do it to both sides, and that cancels out these 4's on that side. And then 4 times 19 is negative. Well, actually, before I even say what that is, remember, this is multiple choice. If I'm doing 4 times 19, that means it's going to be a bigger number. So it can't be 23, because that's only adding 4 and 19. So neither of these work. And it can't be 15, because that's less. That's subtracting, right? So if we're multiplying, it's got to be this. It's got to be a. So right away, I know it's a. But just to finish the problem, 4 times negative 19 is negative 76. And that's less than n. And you guys might be used to seeing the variables on the left side. So what you can do is just flip it around. And remember, if you flip the numbers to the other side, also flip the sign. So now, because n is, you want it to remain greater than or equal to negative 76. And then you know your answer is A. Okay, so now number 2, again, isolate the variable. In this case, it's 7 times x. So we want to divide, the opposite of multiply. Divide both sides. X is greater than or equal to 84 over 7. Again, use your detective skills. If you're going to divide a number, that means it should get smaller. 84 divided by 7. Well, the only one that's smaller is this 12. So we know it's 12. Okay, so it's C. Okay. All right. Now solve this inequality. Well, again, we have to isolate the variable. Isolate x. In order to isolate x, I need to, well, I got a couple options here. I could distribute, or I could divide. Either one would work. It's your preference. I prefer to divide because usually when you divide, it makes numbers smaller. But sometimes it's not always the case. Sometimes not always helpful. In this case, it would be. So I divide 6 on both sides. That cancels out 6. Then on the left here, negative 60 divided by 6 is negative 10. Greater than, sign doesn't change. And then you're left with just the terms inside the parentheses, negative 8 plus x. And then what you want to do here is just solve like you would an equation. I want to get x by itself. So let's add 8 because it's negative. That cancels out. And now I have negative 10 plus 8, which is negative 2 on the left. And then the greater than sign, x, greater than or equal. But be careful. You might be thinking, oh, it's negative 2 and it's greater than, so it must be C, right? But you got to remember, x is on the right side, and if the mouth is eating the negative 2, that means it should be bigger, and x is less. Whereas A is where x is less. Okay, so again, if I flip it, put this on the other side, also flip the sign around, and then you get x is less than or equal to 2, negative 2. Okay, so number 4. Okay, same thing. This is a pretty big number, so I think I'll divide 6, both sides. Cancel that out. 7x plus 5. Same sign, bring that over. And 324 divided by 6. I believe that's 54. And then what you want to do here is get rid of the 5 by subtracting it from both sides, because it's positive, so we subtract it. And now we have 7x is less than or equal to 54 minus 5, it's 49. And you guys probably already see the answer. Divide both sides by 7. Those 7's cancel out, and x will be less than or equal to 7. And so that lets us know it's A. Okay? Okay, number 5. Okay, this one's a little bit trickier, just a couple more steps involved. So here, I could divide negative 3 all the way across. But remember, if I divide by a negative, what happens to the sign in the middle? It causes it to flip. And that just gets a little bit more complicated. Then I'm going to have to do negative divided by negative, and that just That's a little bit much. So I'm going to choose to multiply this time, distribute the 3. And you could do the other way. But this way I don't have to flip the sign. Okay, so now I have 3 times negative 3 times v, negative v, or 3v. And negative 3 times positive 4 is negative 12. And then let's write the sign, less than or equal to. And then we'll have negative 18 minus 6. Okay. So now what I want to do is use my equation solving skills, and I want to put the variables on the left side and the constants or the numbers on the right side. Okay, so let's start with the right side. And to kind of keep us organized, I'm going to draw a line to make sure that we keep things nice and neat. The neater you are, the better you'll do, and less mistakes you'll make. Okay, so on this side, I want only the numbers. So that means this 6v has to go. So it's negative, I'm going to add it, and I add it to the other term that has a v variable. So those go away. So now negative 3v plus 6 is positive 3v, and then bring down the 12, and then bring down the sign, and then we're left with negative 18 over here. Now let's work on the left side. Okay, remember we want the variables over here, so the negative 12 has to go. So we're going to add 12, because it's negative, to both sides. Okay, so now we're left with 3v over here. We still have less than or equal to. And negative 18 plus 12 is negative 6. And then the last step, we want to get rid of this 3. So we divide it on both sides. So v is less than or equal to negative 2. And so we know that the answer is A. Okay, number 6. 6, 7, and 8, all elimination. You want to get numbers that are the same, but then have the opposite sign. So right here in the first one, you see right away that the 8x and negative 8x and 8x are opposites. They're the same number, but then they have different signs. And when you have that, they will cancel each other out. That way you only have to work with one variable. So then you just add the top and the bottom. Okay, so 3 plus, remember there's a 1 here, so it's 3 plus 1y. Okay, so that gives us 4y on the left. And then 27 plus 9, that gives us 36. And then we just solve the equation by getting rid of the 4. Divide both sides by 4. Y equals 9. Now usually when you do the elimination, you don't stop there. You go and find x. But let's just check to see if we can figure out what the answer is with just the y. So let's go to our answer choices over here, and let's see which ones have 9 as the y value. Okay, well A doesn't. C has negative 9, not positive. B has it, but D does not. So then we know it's for sure it's B, because it's the only answer that has 9 as the y value, or positive 9 as the y value. So I don't even have to find x. I can just move on. Remember, this is multiple choice when you guys do your final. Okay, so now here, again, I want to eliminate a variable, and they have to be the same number but opposite signs. I don't have that for either x or y here. So that means I'm going to have to change one of them. Okay, so I'm going to have to change either the x or the y on the bottom equation because they are less than the ones above. Okay, so you can't multiply a whole number times 3 or 16 to make it equal to x and 8. Okay, so let's just multiply the bottom one. Now you could multiply the top one times a fraction, but then that just gets, more complex, and we don't want to do that. So let's do the, I'm going to go ahead and focus on the smaller numbers, the 3x and the x here. So in order to get this to be the opposite, this x, it needs to be 3x. Okay, so it needs to equal 3x, and what do I multiply? 3. Okay, so remember, when you do multiply, you multiply all the terms in the entire equation. So now I'm going to just rewrite the whole thing. So now negative 3x, this is the top equation. We didn't change this one. Equals 8. But then we did change the bottom one. So now 3 times x is 3x. 3 times negative 8y is negative 24y. And then 3 times 0 is 0. Okay, so now we're done with that. Okay, so now we have opposites. Negative 3x and positive 3x goes away. positive 16y plus negative 24y. Well, that's equal to the same thing as basically 16 minus 24, negative 8y. And then 8 plus 0 is 8. Divide both sides by negative 8. Make sure you divide by whatever numbers here on next to the variable. That's what you want to divide. So not just positive 8, but negative 8. And then negative 8 divided into 8 is negative 1. So again, go and check your answers. See if you can just eliminate. All right. For the first one, doesn't have, this is the y, it's negative 1, so it's not A, it's not B, it's not D, it can only be C. So then I don't have to find X. Okay. Remember, use your detective skills. You don't have to solve the entire problem if you don't have to. Or don't solve it if you don't have to. Okay, now on this one, can I multiply the top equation times one number to make opposites? Well, can I multiply a 5 times a number to make 2? No. 6 times a number to make 9? No. Can I multiply 2 times a number to make 5? No. Can I multiply 9 to make 6? No. So that means I'm going to have to change both of them. Okay, and I'm going to deal with the ones that have smaller numbers. Okay, so let's eliminate the x. In order to eliminate the x, they both need to be the same, but different signs. And the easy way to figure out what number to make them, or to multiply them to, is just multiply the top and bottom. 5 times 2 is 10, so I want them to both equal 10. So that means I have to multiply the top times 2 and the bottom times 5. Again, 2 times 5, 2 times 6, and 2 times 12, all the way across. And the same thing with the 5 down here. Okay, so now my new equation will be 10x minus 12y equals 24. And then I'll have on the bottom negative 10x minus 45y, 5 times negative 9. And then 5 times 18 is 90. Okay, again, eliminate the opposite variables. And negative 12 plus negative 45, or the same thing as basically 12 minus 45, is negative 57y. And then 24 plus 90 is 114. Then divide both sides by negative 57. And we get y equals negative 2. So let's go over here. Before we go looking for x, let's see if we can eliminate. A does not have negative 2 for y, neither does B or D, so we know it's C. Okay? Okay, now, okay, on your paper, you should have a problem right here. It's the substitution. But on mine, it's over on the next page. So just move. So you guys don't have to flip the page, but I do. Okay, so we're working on number 9, which is at the bottom of the first page. Okay, so now we're doing substitution. Substitution, one of your equations needs to have a variable isolated on one side. Or in other words, you have to have an equation that has a letter by itself on one side of the equation. And you do here. You have this y by itself over here. So once you have that, you can take what y is equal to, which is 2x plus 4, and plug it into the other equation. So if 2x plus 4 is equal to y, I can plug it into the other y. So now I have 6x. Actually, let's move this over a little bit. Oh, look, magic. Okay, so now 6x plus 3y. Oh, sorry, not 3y. We're going to plug in for y. Remember, anytime you plug in something into an equation, you want to use parentheses. Okay, so now 2x plus 4. Again, I just took that and plugged it in there. Equals 12. Now just solve it. So now, first thing I'm going to do is distribute this 3, or multiply it. 3 times 2x is positive 6x. 3 times 4 is 12. And some of you guys are already like, wait a minute. This looks a little fishy. Okay, so now what I want to do is combine like terms. So I have negative 6x plus 6x. Uh-oh, it's 0. Plus 12, huh? And then I want to get the numbers on the right, right? So then minus 12. Uh-oh. Wait, you're like, wait, 0 on both sides? Well, if you have 0 equals 0, or if you have one number equals the same number, that's an infinite number of solutions you could have. Or, like we've been saying, maybe you haven't heard infinite solutions, but you heard all real numbers. The same thing. Okay? Or remember this symbol. Okay? All right. So now number 10. Number 10, you're going to solve this by graphing. Okay, so first, I'm going to do the first equation in blue. So what you need to do is graph them both and then see where they intersect or where they meet. And where they meet is your solution. Okay, you have your answers choices below. Okay, so with the first one, remember you start with the starting point or y-intercept, the -4. So we go down to -4, draw your first point. Okay, and then you go to the slope of that same equation, which is the one next to the variable, the number next to it, and it's 2. So the slope, m, is equal to 2 over 1. And I guess I'll say b as well. Remember, b is the -4. Okay, so if slope is 2 over 1, then that means we go up 2 and right 1. Up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. Just keep on going all the way. And then for the next equation, which I'll do in green, you first start with the intercept, which is b, which is 1. Okay, so we'll start at 1. And then we go to the slope, which is -3. -3 over 1. Okay, so if it's negative, remember rise over run. Rise is over run. And if it's a negative rise, that means we go down. So down 3, then right 1. Down 3, right 1. And complete as many dots as you can. So to go back the other way, we don't go down, but we go up and then to the left. Okay? And then complete your line. And remember, you have arrows on both sides. Okay, so now here, all right, and then your solution is right there where they meet at 1, 1 and -2. You can always double check to make sure that's correct by just plugging in those values into one of the equations. Actually, you want to check both. If you want to be double sure to make sure, just plug them in, like I said, to both. Just plug in the y where the y is, plug in the x where the x is. Okay, so -2. And then 2 times 1 is 2, minus 4 is -2. So that's check. And then do the other one. So -2 is equal to -3 times 1 plus 1. Okay, so -3 times 1, -3 plus 1 is -2, so that's also checked. So yep, that's the one. Okay. So now, number 11, simplify the expression. Okay, so in this case, we want to simplify this by combining the terms that are like each other. We're adding and subtracting here, so we want to combine the like terms. Now, if you notice, you have a minus in the middle. If you have a minus in the middle, that means to the right, all these terms are going to have their signs changed. Because basically what you're doing is you're distributing this negative all the way across, or in the sense of -1. So now this is going to be 1n. And you can drop the parentheses once you've done that on both of them. Plus 2n cubed minus 4n cubed plus 7. Oops, sorry. Got to change the sign. Forgot. So that becomes -7. And then the 5n squared becomes -5n squared. And then we want to combine the terms that are like each other. Okay, so starting with the 1, I'm going to group all the ones that are just constants without a variable. So I have 1 and -7. And then I've got n squared. I'll put a circle around that. So other square terms, put a circle around that. And then for the cubed terms, I'll put a triangle So 2n cubed and negative 4n cubed. So those will be combined. Now remember, you want this in standard form. So standard form, you start with the highest exponent. So 2n cubed minus 4n cubed, or 2 minus 4, is negative 2n cubed. So done with those. And then we want to go to the next one, which is the squared terms. So negative n, which is negative 1, minus 5 would be negative 6, n squared. So done with those. And then we have 1 minus 7, which is negative 6. So which one is that? That would be A. Okay? And you could actually just do the first term and realize, oh, well, the only one that has 2n cubed is the first one. So I could have stopped there if I wanted to. Okay, so number 12. Find each product. Okay, well, here, it's just multiplying. You're going to distribute here and here. Okay, so remember, if I do variable times another variable, you add the exponents. Okay, so now I have 6 times r squared times r to the 1, so that's r cubed. And right away, I don't even have to do the next step. I just know right away it's d, because that's the only one that has 6r cubed. But just to finish it off, then it's 6 times 7, which is 42, and then there's no r variable to multiply times r squared, so it's still r squared. Okay. Okay, now number 13. Okay, so a couple different ways you can do this. I'm sure your teachers all taught you maybe different methods. Okay, the one that we use in my class is we use the box to multiply these two binomials. Okay, so if it's you have two terms here and two terms here, then that's a 2 by 2 box. And I'll show you guys a couple ways to do this. Do 6k, and then you put the 3 right below that, and then on the top we put 2k and minus 4, and then we just multiply and fill in the boxes. Okay, so now first we do 6k times 2k, that's 12k squared, because 6 times 2 is 12, and then k times k is k squared. And then 6 times negative 4 is negative 24, but then also times k. And then 2 times 2 is 6, but then times k. And 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Now, you could actually just stop there, because you know you're going to first write this term, negative 12k squared, and the only one that has 12k squared is d. But just to finish it off, you would add those terms there. So you have 12k squared, and then you can add these two because they're like each other. They both have k. So negative 24 plus 6k would be negative 18k, and then you write the last term 12. Okay. Okay, the other way would be to FOIL, where you multiply the first terms, so you get 12k squared. Then you multiply then the outside terms, 6k times negative 4, which would be negative 24, which we're basically doing the same thing we did in the box. Okay, that negative 24. Then the inside terms, 3 times 2k plus 6k. Hey, look, you're doing the same thing. Like I said, it's just a different way of laying it out. Okay, that's 12. And then we know that when we combine negative 24 and 6, we get 18. We get the same thing, or negative 18. Okay? Okay, so now 14, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and do the box method. Okay, so now I have x3, because again I have a 2 by 2, 2 terms here and 2 terms here, so I do a 2 by 2 box. So x times x is x squared, x times 3 is 3x, 4 times x is 4x, and then 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, and then I write out x squared, add the two terms on the diagonal, which happen to be x and x, so they're this like terms. 3 plus 4, 7, and then write the last term 12. And we know right away it's b. And again, you could have just recognized, okay, the first term is x squared, and that's b is the only one that is x squared. Okay. Now this one. Here I have 2 terms, and then I have 3 terms. So this would be a 2 by 3 box. Okay, so now make my 2 by 3 box. And now the numbers that go on the side, on this left side, will be the smaller binomial factors. So 8a and negative 3. And the top, I'll write the terms on the right. So 6a squared, negative 4a. And don't forget the signs. Make sure you guys write the signs along with it. Okay? And again, multiply. 8 times 6 is 48. A times a squared is a cubed. 6 times negative 3, negative 18, times a squared. And then 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. Then a times a is a squared. Then, negative 4 times 3, negative 3 is positive 12 times a. And then a times 8 times negative 3 is negative 24 times a. And then negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. And the nice thing about the box is that you know the diagonals will always combine, as long as you keep it all in standard form and put it in order. So first let's write the first term, 48a cubed. And right away I already know that the answer is a, because that's the only one that has 48a cubed. Okay, so now negative 18 plus, I'm just going to go ahead and finish it off, negative 18, plus negative 32 is going to be 50, or not plus, but minus 50a squared. And then 12 plus negative 24, or basically minus 24, is minus 12a. And then write the last term 9. Okay? And again, you didn't have to do all those extra steps. You could have recognized right away that the 48 squared was the first term, and then you're done. Okay, now factor out a common factor, or, as we called it in class, a GCF, the greatest common factor, out of this expression here. Okay, so what we want to do is first you focus on the coefficients, or the numbers, and you say to yourself, what's the greatest common factor among those numbers? What's the biggest number I can divide into all of those? Well, you could divide 2, but it's not the biggest number. I could divide 4, but what about a number bigger than 4? How about 8? 8 goes into all of those. So yeah, let's pull out an 8. So 8 goes on the outside. Okay, so now the next thing you look at is the variables. What's in common with the variables? They all have at least one b. And really it's determined by the term that has the least amount of b's. Okay, so that would be the first one here. So that means I can just take out one b. Now before I go any further, let's look at our choices. Okay, well then that means it's not b, because that has a 2b as your GCF. And it's not c, because this has b squared. So it's either A or C. Okay? And if you look at the difference between A or D, if you look at the difference between the two, the only answer that's different is this last term. So you could just figure out what that last term is and then move on. Or you could figure out the whole thing if you want. Okay, so now, to figure out this first term inside the parentheses here, you're going to do what number times 8 would give us 24? Well, that would be 3. And then how many b's will we have to multiply? None, because we already have a b. 8b. Okay, then we bring down the sign, plus. 8 times what equals 16? Well, that would be 2. And then b times what equals b squared? Well, I need to multiply b. Bring down the plus again, or the positive. And then a times what equals 16? Again, it's 2. And then b times what equals b to the 4th? I'd have to multiply 3 b's to get that. Okay, so then we know for sure that it's D, because that last term was 2b cubed.